This is from chapter 1 of Professor Corey Anton's book, Sources of Significance. Who has not pondered over the fireball that illuminates the daytime sky? Countless people across the globe and throughout history have looked to it and wondered about it. Many people have even worshipped it. Scientists today tell us that everything on this planet feeds off the sun, directly through photosynthesis or indirectly by absorption or ingestion. Try to remember this the next time you are eating a piece of fruit, a bit of light ripened flesh. You also may want to wonder, what exactly does it mean to be an eater? Eating, if we want to be honest about it, is death consumption. At least, that's what a good number of myths suggest. Snakes, because they shed their skin, mythically symbolize life's ability to cast off death. Posed in a circle and shown eating the very death that it sloughs off, the mythic snake image represents the fact that life feeds on its mortality. Death is the way that life eats itself. Life plus death equals food. But the circle of life and death on this planet is possible and in fact remains visible only because it comes from what, properly speaking, was not born and does not die. That is, the fire in the sky. Other questions soon follow. Looking down at our hands, we may ask, whose are these? And what is all of this? Where is it? Where did it all come from? The questions posed here are not threadbare, not why is there something rather than nothing. They regard something else, something that needs our concerted attention. That is the emergence of self-consciousness, the pangs of conscience, and the awareness of death. In a word, the entire world of meaning. And the more we are without any solid response to fundamental questions regarding our own origin, nature, and ultimate ends, the easier it seems to further ask, does any of this matter? Does life ultimately mean anything? An ironic and morose response to these questions is that meaning, conscience, and the significance of life are outdated fantasies or relics from earlier days. A person's life can be boiled down to worm food. But even on its own terms, such an account would be too reductive and final. For in our hair follicles reside countless microscopic organisms. We cannot wash them off, and apparently this parasitic relationship has unidentifiably ancient origins. We are therefore much more than worm food when we die. At the very least, we are edible homes all the way along. To be alive is to be a site for living. There is something else too. As living and breathing organisms take on the dimension of inner individuation by way of symbols and extended self-reflection, they become fundamentally unsure of how they fit or should fit with everything else. They come to stick out as if in relief from all else, and they inevitably concern themselves with issues such as how, in what ways, to whom is life, mine or others, ultimately significant or relevant? Ambiguities abound, and here the questions and responses regarding death and its relation to the meaning of life call for sustained address. Humanity, in so many of its forms, pursues such questions and/or dwells in the response to them. All cultures must secure for their members the material means for survival, but it would be unwarranted to conclude that culture provides nothing more than this, or even is primarily about this. Moreover, personality is not a raw expression of inner character traits or innate behavioral dispositions. Both of these realms, culture and personality, are basically ongoing rituals and symbolic performances for producing and sustaining senses of self-worth. According to Ernest Becker, one crucial function of culture is to make continued self-esteem possible. Its task, in other words, is to provide the individual with the conviction that he is an object of primary value in a world of meaningful action. People may be embarrassed to have their actions reduced to such motives. It is unsettling to discover worldviews and personality types as fictions constructed largely for the ends of sustained self-esteem. And so, if we remain reluctant to give self-esteem such centrality, we might benefit by further exploring how personality and culture merge in the pursuit and maintenance of self-esteem. Ernest Becker often refers to the term psychoanalytic characterology to identify how different personality types, codified and standardized by symbols and ritual performances, repress their origins, nature, and underlying goals. He thus agrees with Freud that people repress what they really are up to, but he disagrees regarding what is being repressed. For Freud, it was eros, or the sex drive, and thanatos, the death drive. For Becker, what's being repressed is the drive toward heroic self-worth. Subjected to psychoanalytic characterology, then, personality types can be disclosed as symbolic and highly stylized routes for pursuing and managing self-esteem. The bewildering array of cultural practices, social forms, customs, rules, and rituals, all with their corresponding entitlements, prescriptions, and various codes of propriety, give material form to a symbolic that is an expanded, though fragile, sense of self-worth. This means that even the most basic cultural forms and symbols, personal names, are not simply verbal conveniences, nor can their function be reduced to indexing self and other. Names make us stand out in relief from all else. They make us unique, but never wholly unrelated. For example, names, both first and last, are commonly kept in the family, so that ancestors and relatives commonly share in them. Someone might be named after a great uncle, be the third generation William, or take another's last name in marriage. These basic symbolic identifications extend and expand the sense of organismal boundaries, and they also precipitate new demands, challenges, obligations, and opportunities for self-worth. But self-esteem blazes up not merely by identifications with personal names. Children are also taught the names of things around them. They are taught how to speak about things and how things are to be valued. They are also told about their family history and traditions, about their community and the larger world. Additionally, they are taught about what is good and what is bad, what is to be done and what is to be avoided. Ernest Becker writes, "As soon as one course of action becomes right and another wrong, life becomes moral and meaningful. Morality is a prescription for choice. Meaning is born as the choice is carried into action." Events of everyday life increasingly take meaningful form as people are able to take deep vested interests in their practices and worldviews. It is also worth underscoring that in our early years, interactions with the larger anonymous world are highly limited, if not nearly non-existent. This sheltering allows for substantial development of both a sense of self-worth and an authorized worldview, including its implied moral order. Many children, not having to face the anonymity and moral complexities of the larger social world, the larger universe, I might add, experience a world that is largely confirming. Removed from the continued threat of utter irrelevance or views that could threaten the moral authority assumed by the parents, children become vitally attached to systems of cultural symbols and their corresponding values and perspectives. Whether by kind-hearted generosity, athletic prowess, academic achievement, artistic talents, wit, good looks, popularity, wealth, or other means, children and young adults learn to esteem themselves in ways that are culturally delineated. These competencies and characteristics, always strewn with symbols and ritual forms, become a kind of character armor that enables people to fend off challenges to their self-worth. A humorous image from popular culture is of a person standing before a mirror, telling himself, "I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me." Part of what makes this funny is that direct attempts to self-worth are self-defeating. The comical image depicts a modern-day rendering of Hegel's master-slave dialectic. It impresses upon us how self-worth cannot found itself. It cannot be a gift that we bestow upon ourselves, for the economy is too insular. Only by something outside of ourselves, transcendent horizons, actual others, skills, objects, or events well cared over. Only by something such as this outside of ourselves can we give breadth and depth to life and our self-worth. For self-esteem, we rely upon what is outside the self. Self-worth and conviction increasingly run together as a person's worldview gives direction and order to his or her life projects. But this also suggests that self-conscious employment of symbols renders humans incapable of straightforward action, and understood as such, what is commonly identified as ethnocentrism includes a wider circumference than simple self-interest. Said otherwise, because we could be absolutely wrong regarding who we are and how we are to be valued, we stave off this supreme terror by taking refuge in deep conviction. What is involved is nothing less than a cultural re-instinctivization. Molded and solidified by cultural forms deeply infused, personality emerges only after acculturation sets in. People simply find their beliefs, values, and practices to feel natural. Culture provides a codified hero system that enables its members, some more than others, to maintain a sustained and validated sense of primary value in a world of meaningful action. All cultures, whether explicitly acknowledged as such or not, are inherently religious. They provide form and structure for human transcendence. As Ernest Becker writes, culture itself is sacred, since it is the religion that assures in some way the perpetuation of its members. All systematizations of culture have in the end the same goal, to assure them that in some ways their lives count in the universe more than merely physical things count. All cultures create ritual forms that enable members to symbolically transcend their sheer materiality and organismal being. But cultural forms not only extend organismal boundaries and amplify roots for the pursuit of self-esteem, they also whet the appetite for some kind of immortality. Cultural forms provide the promise of heroic victory over the demise of the flesh. One example already mentioned is names. Names typify the human desire to go other than the way of the insect's nameless, faceless, and unremembered death. Most people don't symbolically individuate the bugs they are about to squash, and this offers a clue to the meaning of naming and to the kind of transcendence a name can bestow. With names, we become more than our material bodies. We can be invoked when we are not there or even after our passing. We are, as Ernest Becker suggests, an ambiguity of both animal and spirit.